Hey everyone, and welcome back to another week here at Just Gay Stuff Podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Lauren.
And this week, guess what?
What?
We are jumping back on the history train.
Ooh, I love the history train.
We are bringing another lesson, but this time
You're the teacher.
Well, I am the teacher. But this time it's all about lesbian power couples.
Heck yes.
So,
I brought you the dudes and she's bringing you the ladies.
I am. You also brought us the them theys.
I did.
You did.
And the transgenders.
You did. Okay.
Look,
so
she's got to catch up in the history lessons.
we've done so many. I feel like, well, this was the natural next one to do.
Yeah.
So to start this episode off, just as a precursor, I want to start by reading everybody a post that was shared to us on Facebook, which fits absolutely seamlessly with this episode. So this post is credited to the Facebook page Historical and Archaeological. And for everyone who isn't watching the video, because I'll put the picture up.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you want to describe the picture that we're looking at?
Yeah, it's a black and white 4-picture post. So you know when you see like the 4 photos side by side on a Facebook post of people uploading that? And so it's obviously of 2 women. I'm not sure when it was, like 1800s or something like that. I'm sure we'll get into that are clearly in a relationship, and it shows them kissing and hugging and being quite close. So you're like, oh, they're clearly lesbians.
So 1800s is close.
Oh, was it wrong?
But actually, this picture is said to be some of the first ever lesbian self-portraits that were taken via a photo booth in 1910.
They had a photo booth in 1910?
They did.
Oh my gosh.
So this is what the post reads, which is going to be the perfect beginning to this episode. Photo booths were how most of the earliest forms of queer visual documentation started. It was the only way they could capture a photo in total secrecy, since there was no need for a third party to take the picture.
I was going to say that. Was it because they could hide?
In the early 20th century, studio portraits of lesbian couples offered a tender, intimate window into lives lived largely in silence. Though discreet and often coded in presentation, these photographs quietly spoke volumes. Dressed in their best formal attire, the women posed with a calm assurance, sometimes seated closely, holding hands or gazing at each other with affection that needed no words. At a time when same-sex relationships were erased from public discourse, these images became deeply personal affirmations of love and identity. These photographs were never meant for public exhibition. Instead, they were cherished tokens of connection, tucked away in private albums or drawers. Yet even in their secrecy, they represented an act of quiet resistance. Choosing to commemorate a relationship through a formal portrait was a bold gesture in a world that denied their existence. Each frame captured a truth that defied the prevailing norms, an enduring declaration that their love, though invisible to society, was very much real. The women in these portraits often lived with the fear of exposure, rejection, or persecution. Yet their willingness to preserve their bond on film, however subtle, reveals a quiet courage and a profound sense of self. Today, these photographs are more than relics. They are pieces of a reclaimed history, rich with meaning and humanity. They remind us that love, even when forced into the shadows, finds way to endure, and that visibility, no matter how soft, can become a powerful legacy.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I thought it was a really important way to start the episode because, as we've said so many times before, our queer ancestors have always been around.
Yeah.
Whether the wider community knew about them or not, and contrary to a lot of weird opinions that people seem to have these days, we didn't just pop up overnight. We didn't come down in the last shower. So with all of that being said...
Come down the last shower.
Yeah, have you not heard that saying?
No, but you know what I'm like with things.
Oh, I didn't come down the last shower. Haven't you heard that?
No.
You're so un-Australian. Anyway. With all of that being said, we're going to talk about some very influential lesbian power couples today.
Yes, let's go. I'm so excited.
And I don't know if I mentioned this to you when I was writing this out, but there are so many that I think we're going to have to break this into 2 episodes and do another one down the line.
I love that. I am all for pussy power on this show.
Pussy pairings and power.
Yeah, pussy pairings and power. I was going to say pussy pairs and power.
Yeah, I mean,
Wrong
whatever floats. Okay, so I'm going to put a little trigger warning here because there's a brief mention of sexual assault, but it doesn't go deeper than that. It's just a mention, so just a little trigger here.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't read ahead.
I didn't realize that was a real thing.
Yeah, so we're going to start in the roaring 1920s with the relationship of Virginia Woolf and Vida Sackville West. What do you know about Virginia Woolf?
Well, as I just mentioned, I didn't know it was a real thing. I've only, they were based on real people. I've only ever known about the play, either through drama or through Kath and Kim.
Because we've watched it so much.
Yeah, well.
Virginia Woolf.
Since I was forced into watching it.
Well, considering you know hardly anything about Virginia Woolf, let's go ahead.
Yeah, please do.
So Adeline Virginia Woolf was one of the most influential modernist authors of the 20th century. This is going to blow your mind.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
She helped pioneer the stream of consciousness as a narration method in modern media. So stream of consciousness is when we're watching a movie and we can hear the character's thoughts. So that's the form of narration, is the character's own thoughts.
Yeah.
She invented that.
What?
She helped bring it to film, TV.
I was not prepared.
You weren't prepared to learn.
For everyone who just heard silence for 2 seconds.
Lauren was like,
that was,
what?
and if you're not watching the video, yeah, my brain was literally exploding, as Jess said, and I was not ready. I just had my jaw dropped. I couldn't compute what was going on.
A lot of the people that we're going to talk about in this episode, a lot of the lesbians we're going to talk about in this episode are actually really, really important people for the modern world.
Isn't it funny? It's always women and you never realise.
Don't worry, I touch on that too.
Oh, okay.
So in 1912,
oh, fuck.
Virginia married Leonard Woolf, and together they started the Hogarth Press,
a
company which went on to publish a lot of Virginia's work. Do you know the Hogarth Press?
Yeah, I do, but I didn't.
That's because you're a nerd.
Yeah.
So in the 1920s, Virginia met Vida Sackville West at a dinner party where Virginia offered to publish a book that Vida and her husband had been working on.
Ooh.
And they'd been working on this book for years at a time and had no interest.
Scandalous.
They went to a dinner party, met Virginia Woolf, and all of a sudden...
It's all about who you know.
Exactly.
Networking, baby, even from the 1920s.
Oh, even before that. It's all about who you know. Over the course of the time that they worked together, they bonded over both having absent parents throughout their childhood, and after relating to each other on an emotional level, they became confidants and lovers over a 10-year period.
That's a long time.
Yep. Woolf openly suffered sexually due to experiencing abuse at the hands of her stepbrother, and said that being involved with Vida gave her the most satisfaction sexually.
Yeah.
Vida also inspired a gender-shifting protagonist in Woolf's novel called Orlando, a biography.
Wow.
When their affair ended, it was with respect and on good terms, and they even did the stereotypical lesbian thing and remained close friends.
Ah, of course.
Apparently, throughout the affair, both husbands knew that they were seeing each other, but neither did anything to try and stop it. West and her husband were said to have had an agreed open marriage anyway, and Leonard Woolf seemed to just want what made Virginia happy. So that's quite wholesome.
That is quite wholesome. I'm thinking even in that time...
There were open marriages?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. I was more thinking the headspace in their era and stuff, knowing that, yeah, your wives are quite happy and in this
sexual relationship.
Yeah, exploration and sexual relationship is just trying to be happy. And then my mind automatically was did the men have an affection to one another, or...
I didn't find anything, but yeah, you don't know. I mean, Vida and her husband were in an open marriage anyway.
I think even back then, you often see in film and television, if you've watched a lot of older stage stuff, or even we've spoken about it where, men had to play women, then there was often affairs and stuff that happened throughout then, and a lot of fluidity was going on.
That's why it blows my mind that people are like, oh, it didn't happen in my day. Well, actually, it really did.
It's been around you the whole time, bro.
But I felt like this story was quite a wholesome story.
Yeah, that was cute. My mind is still blown from one that I clearly didn't pay that much attention in literature, even though that's
That's a subject you took?
That's my major, for not knowing that Virginia Woolf was a real person, and that the whole story of Virginia Woolf was a real story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know in Kath and Kim where he's like, my name's Leonard Woolf and my wife's a lesbian.
Yeah. Now I get it.
But just touching on the historical side of this, we've always spoken about how history can be so dark.
Yeah.
I found this super wholesome, so not all history is horrible.
No.
I mean, I'm sure there were horrible aspects, but it's quite a wholesome story.
Yeah, that one is wholesome.
Yeah. Okay. The next fun couple were actually brought back to life in the show by HBO called Gentleman Jack. Did you ever watch it?
I have not watched it, but I have heard of it.
Yes.
So, look, I'll just add it to our queer list of shows.
Well, look, I started to watch it, but I also hate a period drama, so don't come for me. But after writing this episode out and learning a bit about
I'm going to have to
rewatch
it.
Yeah, I might have to endure a period drama.
You should just like watch it, but put them in like, because we're currently watching Rizzoli and Isles, and we're like, even though they're not a couple, it's queer baiting. That's the queer baited show of all shows.
That's another episode we have to do.
Yeah. So you just pretend like they're in the Rizzoli and Isles.
Yeah, maybe. I did watch the start of one episode, but anyway.
I know exactly who you're talking about though.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know Gentleman Jack, it follows the story of real life couple Anne Lister and Anne Walker, who actually got married in the 1800s in Britain.
Wow.
Now, of course, the marriage wasn't legally recognised at the time, but that does not change the fact that it was a very defining moment for British history, and it took place in 1834.
Wow.
So that's quite early on in the 1800s too. See, I think it's funny, like all these stories over time that we get told about wealthy men and men making all this change, but we hardly hear about wealthy women.
Yep.
Especially in this time period. But in this story, Anne Lister was a very wealthy English landowner.
Wow.
And she had become famous because she travelled the world. In the 1820s, she met Anne Walker, a young 29-year-old heiress.
So they're literally the hot, rich lesbian couple.
Yeah. Nice. And while Lister was 12 years her senior, she was also still hung up on a former flame, a lady called Miss Mariana Launton, who had broken Lister's heart by marrying a man in 1816.
Jeez.
But Lister decided to throw herself into trying to court Anne Walker, the heiress.
So the typical lesbian thing.
Absolutely.
Typical lesbians going.
Typical lesbians falling for a straight woman.
And then going, oh, they're not into me, broke my heart, better go chase the next.
I'll find a queen.
The next flame.
And that she did. So over the time that they spent together, their romance flourished and they fell in love.
Wow.
Starting their relationship in 1832 and tying the knot at a communion on Easter Sunday at the Holy Trinity Church in Goodrham Gate in York in 1834. It's a testament to their love that there is still a blue plaque still at the church today commemorating the first lesbian wedding.
Wow.
And it was in a church.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I think what a big fuck you to religion to be like, we're going to have a lesbian wedding in the Holy Trinity Church on Easter Sunday.
Yeah, that's a massive fuck you. It's
like the resurrection of Jesus. Lesbian wedding.
Lesbian wedding. That's amazing. That is like just a slay queen moment.
It is,
honestly.
isn't it?
I love the fact that there's still a plaque for their wedding and for the celebration of their love. So it's their fuck you is ultimately forever in that church.
Yep, commemorating the first lesbian wedding.
That's amazing.
So the Annes, I'll still call them the Annes.
Yeah.
They remained together and lived in Anne Lister's estate called Shibden Hall. What's sad is they were only married for 6 years when they went on a trip abroad together and Anne Lister fell ill and passed away in 1840.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a bit sad. Apparently the show Gentleman Jack suggests that there were some affairs to their marriage, but none of Lister's extensive diaries that outlined her romantic affairs suggested that any of that was true.
Yeah, I can understand that because it's like dramatization for
totally.
film and stuff. I did have a question though, like if it was based on a real couple and they were both called Annes, right? Yeah. So why was the show called Gentleman Jack?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It was almost like the question was there for you.
Yeah, almost.
Well, apparently in the 1800s, Gentleman Jack was Anne Lister's nickname, and it was given to her as a derogatory term to describe a woman that had more masculine features and lived an unconventional lifestyle.
Oh, so she was very like, I will just take back my power and a big fuck you to everyone. I love that. That's amazing. I was thinking that in the same way that the Bronte sisters and other people back in those days had to write under a pseudonym because women weren't allowed to publish writing.
Yeah, kind of like that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think, calling the show Gentleman Jack is a big fuck you to be like, oh, well, I'm going to take this derogatory term and use it to put our story forward.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, crazy. So
That's awesome.
It's not like she didn't come up against like homophobia and all these aspects.
I think everybody, unfortunately, in our community comes up against something.
Anne Lister specifically, because of her masculine features, everyone treated her very differently. But coming out of that, she was essentially the first modern lesbian icon.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely think we are going to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that I am because I like period dramas,
well,
but
I'll
you'll
watch
just
it
watch
you.
it with me because it's will be on in bed.
Yeah. All right. So the next couple had a lesbian love story that spanned for 40 years.
Wow, 40 years. Good on him.
We're back in the 1900s with this couple.
Okay.
And they are Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas.
Sounds so familiar.
Does it?
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
know why, but it sounds familiar.
Well, Gertrude Stein was an American novelist, writer, and poet who lived in Paris with her art collector brother. She met the love of her life, Alice B. Toklas, after Alice had decided to move to Paris after the 1906 San Francisco earthquake.
Wow.
Now, there's a bit of discrepancy in how they met or when they met.
Oh, yeah.
Some sources say that they literally met the day that Alice got to Paris, and others say that they met a year after.
Okay.
So the most common was they met on September 8th in 1907 after Alice was invited to Gertrude's brother's house for a tea party with his wife, because Michael, Gertrude's brother, him and his wife Sarah were massive art collectors.
Yeah.
And Alice was in the art world.
Right.
So she was invited over. He told his
Queers
sister.
everywhere in the art
He told his
world.
sister, come over. We've got a friend coming over for tea. Well, that was it.
Yeah.
It was said that they were immediately taken by each other, and the couple lived openly in vibrant Paris throughout the early half of the 1900s. It's also probably the reason that they stayed in Europe, as Gertrude had originally made the move to Paris for its more accepting community.
I was going to say that. Was it because Paris was a lot more fluid and like accepting?
Yeah. And the USA in the 1900s was
like,
not.
no.
Yeah. So in the 1980s, Yale University opened a cabinet that they had acquired from the time period from Gertrude and Alice. Apparently in the cabinet, there were hundreds of letters detailing their relationship and their love that no one had ever seen before.
Wow.
In one of the letters, Stein had written to Toklas, "Because I didn't say goodnight and I miss it so, please know how much I love you."
Aww.
And there are bookstores named after the power couple. If you type in Gertrude and Alice into Google, it's like Gertrude and Alice bookstore.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of like a testament to their love and the fact that they were, like, Gertrude was a literary giant, I suppose. And yeah, Alice was an art collector. So
I love that. That's the thing. I love that you always find queer people in such like accepting spaces because we've had to, like in the theatre, in the art world, in the literary space. Like
I feel like every queer person is creative in a way, whether they let that creativity show to the outside or they keep it for themselves. It's like just part of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so the next couple that we're going to jump into kind of touches on what you spoke about earlier, how some of our ancestral female creatives had to write under pseudonyms.
Right.
So you were absolutely bang on with that. And that is what happened with this next couple.
Oh.
So I guess their relationship has also been under debate for many, many years.
Oh.
So I'm not going to
under debate as in were they a couple?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not going to solidly say they were a lesbian power couple, but there is a lot of debate around it.
Right.
So we're talking about Edith Anna Somerville, and are you ready?
Nah.
Her second cousin, Violet Florence Martin.
Oh, second cousin.
I know.
At least it wasn't her first cousin.
Yeah, well, as we know, these kind of just removed family relationships were a lot more common throughout history. And while Edith and Violet never outed themselves as a lesbian couple, they did live together and vow not to marry as they dedicated themselves to their collective creative writing.
Right. No, I understand why it's a little bit controversial.
It is controversial. And also Edith was proposed to many times by certain men. And family had turned them down because they weren't rich enough for her.
Right.
And in some sources it says that that kind of broke her heart and steered her away from love in that aspect. But I don't know. I have my thoughts.
I have
and my processes.
thoughts and I call kind of bullshit on that one. Just before you go any further, the storyline already kind of reminds me of in Little Women, where the main, I'm not surprised, where you wouldn't like it. It's a period piece.
Yeah, probably.
Where the main character, she tries to become a reporter and a journalist, but because of the time period, she has to write under a pseudonym. And same thing, she's not really into men and has relationships with women instead. So I'm like,
Yeah, kind of. Maybe is that based off something real? Maybe.
I don't know.
Oh, well, the more you know. Well, Edith and Violet published approximately 14 novels together under the pen names Somerville and Ross.
Wow.
Violet Florence Martin took on Martin Ross as her pen name.
So she took her last name.
Yeah, and Ross was also a family name.
Right.
In their ancestral being.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting how she felt like she had to take on a male name to be...
It was the era. You had to take on a male pseudonym, era to be successful. And whilst we still see such places in different career paths be dominated by the men. Yeah, the men.
Dominated by men.
Dominated by men. At least now in society, we have a lot more females in and around the workforce. But, back then it was a very hard thing for women to be able to do.
Definitely. Well, the pair also believed deeply in spirituality and thought themselves to be connected in this way, which helped them to continue to write novels together even in times where they spent years apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a little soul connection.
Yeah. I also feel like that was pretty forward for the time.
Yeah.
Because they fully believed in that spirituality. And I'm kind of like...
is quite forward for that time as well.
This is late 1800s, early 1900s.
Wouldn't that... Yeah. And for anyone else, if that was... out there, other people may have thought they were witches or
I'm like
condemned to witchcraft. It
literally
was
that era, right?
Yeah.
Between like the 1600s and even the late 1900s, we had the whole satanic panic and witchcraft and people burning at the stake and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And it was usually women because they were smarter and understood science and education.
Well, sadly, in December of 1915, Violet passed away from a brain tumour that was believed to have stemmed from a hunting accident that displaced her back in 1898.
Aww.
And fun fact, back in this time, women weren't meant to hunt, but Edith and Violet went on hunting trips just because.
That's cute. I love when women of a different time period are like, fuck the law, we'll do what we want.
I know, right? Well, after Violet died, Edith refused to believe that she could continue to write. But after holding a seance in 1916, after being asked to assist in contacting a particular colonel, a message was sent to her from Violet that said, "You and I have not finished our work."
Wow. That's really cool. That's scary and cool at the same time.
Witchy vibes.
Yeah, witchy vibes. Very spiritual.
Mm-hmm. So after receiving this message from beyond the grave, Edith went on to publish a further 15 novels under their shared pen name with Violet spiritually by her side.
Aww.
Together, they were considered to be some of the first New Age women to achieve success without a man.
Go girlfriends.
Go girlfriends. And as I said in the beginning, while their relationship has been highly debated over the course of history, some people believe their letters to each other hold a sexual passion, while others describe them as a familiar sisterly intimacy.
I think there's a difference. You could tell. I need to read these letters to
know.
To know, but you usually can tell there's a difference between a sexual passion and a familiar sisterly intimacy.
Well, I feel like there's two sides of the coin, right? Who's reading more into it? Are the straights being like, wow, they were just such good friends? Or are the gays being like, they lived their whole lives together and refused to marry, so one of us?
Well, I think it's a little bit more than just that straight black and white.
Is it though?
Well,
we might have to find some of their letters.
We'll have to do some, I want to do some research and find some of their letters because I'm very intrigued by the rest of their story now.
Well, before we move on from this couple, I think it's important to mention that arguably their most notable work was the Irish RM stories, which has been described as among the most popular and successful works of comic fiction to come out of Ireland.
Oh, wait, so they were both Irish?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The stories were also adapted for British television under the same title of the Irish RM from 1983 to 1985.
Wow, that's really cool.
And when we look at some of their novels, it's like literally really nice little sketches with all these stories. It was really quite cool.
And then if you think about the fact, I can understand why Edith didn't want to continue writing after, what was the other one's name?
Violet.
After Violet passed away. And I don't think I hate to tell you people, but I don't think that's a sisterly familiarity. I think that's from heartbreak. I mean, I would have heartbreak.
You would have heartbreak.
I would
if
have
your
heartbreak
sister
if my sister passed away, but a different kind. I think I would still use that in my passions for writing or whatever I was doing.
I think she probably felt like they had achieved most of their success together.
Yeah.
So to try and achieve it alone might have fallen flat, and then there's that fear of failure as well.
Violet just became her guardian angel.
Yeah, well, literally. So going through a lot of these famous people throughout history, I really feel like on a grand scale, I know so little. So that's another reason why I love episodes like this, because I feel like I suddenly have more queer knowledge under my belt in case I ever need it for a debate.
And lately you have been debating quite a lot.
I have been debating on Facebook. I'm keyboard worrying all these homophobes away.
Yeah, bye.
Now, speaking of power couples.
Yeah.
This couple is the ultimate power couple.
Oh.
I feel it.
Okay.
It will blow your mind.
Okay, wait, I need to get readjusted if I'm going to have my mind blown
Like,
for a
we could do
time.
a whole episode on this couple.
Oh, okay.
And actually, another queer podcast did, and I will put the show notes in.
They did? Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So the next couple we're going to talk about are Ethel Collins Dunham and Martha May Elliott.
And not related to Lena Dunham.
I don't even know who Lena Dunham is.
And you call yourself queer.
Who's Lena Dunham? Is she the girl from The Girls?
Don't you know the writer Lena Dunham? And then she's been in like all these comedy after. Where's my phone?
Yeah, she's from that show The Girls.
Probably. I just hold on 2 seconds. Oh, it is Girls. Yeah, you were right.
Anyway, I have no idea. Well, she's American, so they could be related. I didn't look into it.
I just was because she's also queer, so that's how I got to that.
Oh, really? Yeah, it could be a generational thing. Okay. Anyways, back to Ethel
that was
and Martha.
a sidetrack.
Back to Ethel and Martha. So Ethel and Martha met while studying at Bryn Mawr College in Philadelphia in 1910.
Mm-hmm.
And after an instant connection, the women were inseparable for 60 years.
Lesbians.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole episode, Lauren. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I know that, but I'm just like...
You'll have that one person going, maybe they were just best friends though.
There's always one.
So Martha graduated from Bryn Mawr a year before Ethel, but waited for her so that they could both enroll into medical school together at Johns Hopkins in 1914.
Okay, but is that not like the most cliche?
I'll wait for you.
That's not the most cliche lesbian thing to do.
I'll wait
It's
for you.
instead of I'll travel this many miles or kilometers or
We'll get
whatever.
there.
Oh, okay.
So graduating high in her class, Martha was guaranteed her internship at Johns Hopkins Hospital, but turned it down when Ethel's application was rejected.
Oh.
She actually wrote a letter to her mother saying, I just feel sad because Ethel wasn't accepted like I was.
Oh.
Martha instead took an internship in Boston, becoming the first woman doctor there.
Hell yeah, Martha. You go, girlfriend.
Then, hilariously, throughout the war, there was a shortage of men for doctors' jobs, and so Johns Hopkins suddenly had room for Ethel to join as a pediatric intern.
Oh, surprise.
So now they wanted her because half the men were off in war.
Yeah, well, get rid of the men anyway. I mean, I'm just kidding, not all men.
The sad part was that this then separated them because Johns Hopkins was not in Boston.
Yes.
So it separated them for a year, and they both said even with visits, it felt impossible to be apart.
Long distance is hard.
Yeah. The hard time stayed with the next year, seeing them both change jobs and change hospitals again, but not to anywhere closer together.
Ugh.
In 1919, Martha was invited to be a first-year resident at Yale, and in 1920, Ethel joined her there as one of the first female instructors at Yale's School of Medicine, and they were finally reunited.
Ooh, scandalous.
Yeah. In 1922, the pair finally were able to move in together after their jobs had kept them living apart. So apparently where Martha was living in Yale,
Yeah.
she had to live on campus and she wasn't allowed to actually live off campus.
Yeah.
So even though her and Ethel were close together, they still couldn't live in the same space, which is a bit sad. So she still had to wait until she moved up the ranks in her job and all that.
I was also like, student and teacher vibes. Calm down.
No, neither are a student.
Oh.
They're both teachers.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
okay
yeah,
then. Well, that's
It's
why,
not-
that's why I said scandalous, because I thought you meant like she was a first year resident and then Ethel joined her as an instructor. I was like, oh.
No, but they're both on the same level playing field.
That's okay then.
Martha wrote about the excitement of moving in with Ethel in her letters to her mum often. In her letter about their house, she exclaimed how the house had 2 bedrooms, but that her and Ethel would be sharing one.
Ah.
I'm like, it is so scandalous for the time. Like,
Yeah, it is scandalous for time.
we're sharing a bed and it's the 20s. It's been said that because of their relationship.
She saw more than her ankles.
Yeah, she did. I think she saw under a whole nightgown.
Oh.
Who knows though, the lights might have been off. It's been said that because of their relationship, even though unconventional for the time, they were able to have the career trajectories that they did because they were 2 women.
Yeah.
Had they been in a heterosexual coupling, there would have been fears that society would have forced the women into homemaking roles. So the fact that they powered through their careers in full support of one another is a testament to a modern style relationship.
Hell yeah, girlfriends.
Yeah, because one really took care of pediatrics and one was taking care of like the social aspects that affects the health in babies.
Yeah, wow.
So it was a lot of research, a lot of like, think Meredith Grey.
Oh yeah, no, I got you.
Think Meredith Grey starting all the research she did in Grey's Anatomy after Derek died.
Yeah, nah, I gotcha.
Yeah. So both women, though wildly successful in their fields of pediatrics and social health in infants, weren't free from prejudices.
Never are.
They both faced some aggressive, sexist and homophobic comments, some calling them female incels that are clearly too refined to find a man.
Wow. Okay, so this is really interesting because until we had recently watched
Adolescence.
Thank you. I was like, what's that show called?
Never heard
I
incel
had never
before.
heard of the word incels before.
Neither.
And now I'm like, oh, okay, I understand this sentence, which is fucked, but I
and I think
understand this
maybe our
sentence now.
listeners have heard more about the incel discussion than we have, but I was really taken aback by all of that.
Me too. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the younger generation and younger people who know a lot more about incels. I don't know.
And I'm so out of the loop with that now. I feel like
Me too. We're old.
We've crossed the 30 threshold.
Yeah.
The same gentleman actually went on to say they need to call on a committee of mothers to show these women how to acquire a husband and have babies on their own.
Oh my God, fuck off.
Instead of working on everyone else's children, they need to acquire a husband and have kids of their own.
Joke's on you. Women can have babies without you.
Mm-hmm. Even though at the time, less than 30% of women that were working in medicine were actually married.
I think also a lot of comments come from obviously the societal norm, but also the jealousy of women being successful in a field that's usually
dominated by them.
Yeah, usually dominated by a man.
Totally.
So it's nowhere in anywhere, shape or form acceptable, but I understand where that person's thoughts or feelings may have come from to project their own
it's just jealousy.
shit.
Yeah. So social judgments never stopped the couple. In 1957, Ethel Dunham was awarded the John Howland Award, which is the highest honor awarded by the American Pediatric Society, making her the first woman in history to win.
That's incredible.
Then her partner Martha May Elliott won it, making her the second.
Holy crap.
Solidifying their status as a power couple dedicated to their fields of medicine.
Well, there you go. That's a big fuck you to everyone.
Oh, yeah. They continued to live, thrive, and work together until Ethel's death in 1969.
What a year to go out.
Yeah.
What a legend.
What a lesbian year.
What a lesbian year to go out, Ethel.
Dinner for two.
She was like, 69, peace. Love it. No, that was, my mind was blown. I'm like, in a different way of the gentleman Jack, fuck you. These women were like, well, fuck you, dudes.
I can't even tell you how much I learnt about all of these amazing women in just writing out this episode, that like we just don't have time in an episode to write everything that needs to be written. Like we could actually do individual episodes on all of these couples.
Women. Yeah. I think that's what I love about when we do these history episodes, is because you always learn so much when you're writing about them, and it just gives you such a kick that you're like, oh, well, all these ancestors before us were like, so you're like, fuck yeah, I'm going to get on the podcast and I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to pave the way for women and
my mindset is like,
people.
I can't wait to tell Lauren all this new stuff that she's going to learn.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to tell everyone else.
Me too.
Okay, so this next one, we're headed behind the scenes in Hollywood for what I think will be the last couple that we're going to talk about in this episode, because we are going to run out of time here, because if we shoved them all into one episode, we'd be here for hours.
That's true.
So I think there are a bunch of other couples that I'm going to put into a second episode down the line.
Okay, gotcha.
But for the last couple we're going to talk about today is Dorothy Arzner and Marion Morgan.
Okay.
Have you heard of Dorothy Arzner at all?
No, I have not.
That surprises me.
Why?
Because Dorothy Arzner was the first and is considered one of the only successful female directors during the period known as the Golden Age.
No, I had no idea. I do know what the Golden Age is. I don't know why it's called that.
Okay. Well, for anybody who doesn't know, the Golden Age of cinema is considered to be between the 1920s and the 1960s. And the reason that it's called that is because it's kind of like that period of time is recognized as the most influential time for TV and film, mostly film. And it's because people came to fame in that time, like Humphrey Bogart, Clark Gable, Grace Kelly, all of those greats.
Yeah, legends.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of independent film companies. A lot of the major film companies were controlling movies like MGM, Paramount, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox. And then the technology for film, like if you think about the first Wizard of Oz movie and then to films that were in the 60s, so like 30 years later, how far technology came.
Oh, so far.
We started to see what was called the 180-degree angle camera and the 360-degree angle camera. So when you're seeing like spinning things, all of these different technological things that really developed in this time.
Yeah, so much. And even thinking about the Wizard of Oz thing, like that was very rare. They would have just been one of the very first to go into color even to have that film production.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of things like that as well, I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But Dorothy Asner was originally connected to stars like Billy Burke and Alla Nazimova. But all of that changed when she found herself on the set of the film Man-Woman Marriage in 1921. That is where she met a vaudeville dancer and choreographer named Marion Morgan.
Beautiful.
Marion Morgan had a failed marriage and a son when she uprooted her life to move to California. And she took on a variety of jobs. She was even a PE teacher at a local school.
What?
Yeah. But then when she got into running dance troupes, she was known to be the strictest instructor of a dance troupe.
Yeah.
And she met Dorothy because she was the choreographer for the people in the film.
Yeah.
So when she met Dorothy, that unleashed a passion within her both romantically and professionally. Dorothy and Marion went on to partner in business and in personal life, and Asner went on to help launch the careers of further Golden Age stars like Katharine Hepburn and Lucille Ball.
Wow.
She directed films, commercials, and even training videos for the Women's Army Corps in World War II. And Marion was by her side doing a lot of the choreography for a lot of the films
that's so cool.
Dorothy was a part of. Dorothy was also the first woman to join the Directors Guild of America and direct the first ever full-length movie with sound.
Oh my gosh.
The movie was called The Wild Party and was released in 1929. So before The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, wow.
Crazy, right?
That's insane.
In 1930, the successful businesswomen commissioned famous architect W.C. Tanner to build them a Hollywood estate where they lived until Marion Morgan passed away in 1971. Their house was made a historical cultural monument in 1986 and will always be known as the Asa Morgan Residence, which they named Armour.
I love that.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Yeah. I just needed a moment to take that in. I had no idea, but that's so beautiful, especially because I love everything to do with the 1920s and
I have a small
30s.
speculation about the name of their house.
Yeah.
I'm like, they named it Armour because they lived there together. And were they facing like a lot of prejudice because of the time that they were in? And that was their like home.
It was their home. It was their safe space. It was their armor. Yeah, I totally got that from that straight away.
Yeah. How much have you learnt tonight?
I have learned so much, and I did not know that my brain was able to comprehend that tonight, considering such busy weeks.
I know. So there are so many other lesbian couples in the fold that I do want to bring to light, and we probably did have time for one more, but I think we'll give our brains trust a rest.
Yeah.
And we'll leave everyone on that one because we don't want to overwhelm anyone with information.
No, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably have people of their own that they know of.
Yeah, so if you have a power lesbian couple that you want to send in, please write.
Jess from Just Gay Stuff podcast.
Maybe one day, depending on how this legacy lasts and holds up.
Oh, I meant now.
Oh, you meant now? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I'll take it. All right, delirium is set in.
Yeah.
So until next week,
you better remember to
stay gay, motherfuckers.
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.